downtown, the improvements, people more and more they want to be here, and it's worth it. And there are a couple of other organizations, other businesses that we've interviewed over the past couple of weeks who've said the same thing. And there's a lot more excitement about what's going on, and a lot more people wanting to be downtown. So I'm glad that you guys are able to be a part of that.
Absolutely, me
Awesome,
too.
cool. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right. That's it. We'll wrap this one up. Thanks, guys.
We're back live. All right, Mike. So there we go. I can hear it now. We're back live. That was boy, Ethan Brown. He really puts a bit of personality on that, right?
Yeah.
I remember when he first started, he shied away from that side of the thing. Now he's out there, signature hat, walking around downtown,
Making jokes.
cracking jokes about the lamb guy and all that. But that restaurant, that's really something. The whole farm to table movement, right?
Yeah, it's definitely catching on, and it's good to see businesses like that coming into downtown.
I hear if you like cheese, like specialty cheese, it's a pretty good place to go, right?
Yeah,
You were telling me. I think you were telling me.
Yeah, lots of really great local goat cheeses. Yeah.
I'm not a goat cheese fan. It just, well, it's very, it's an acquired kind of, very strong, right?
You can do it in salads.
Yeah.
Maybe something sweet in there.
Lamb and goat cheese, not a fan of. Really don't find any value in that. And liver.
Yeah. Ooh.
Liver, lamb, and goat cheese to me, no, not having any of that. I don't, it just tastes so, like, gamey. Now, deer meat sometimes tastes gamey, but then sometimes, and I think lamb the same way. It depends on how you cook it, maybe what cut of meat you have.
Yeah.
I've
But-
never had venison. Have you, Kelsey?
No.
Yeah, so it just depends on, I think it just depends on maybe how it's cooked or how it's cut. I don't know. But I never know what I'm getting, so I don't get it. Because you taste some of it, and it's just really that strong. Anyways, so hey, our next segment, we have a segment here that actually the man behind the board today, Kwesi Foster, had interviewed some folks over at a program called Interrupt, which helps to get kids into
Cybersecurity.
Oh, you have a microphone. I forgot you had a microphone. You couldn't see it. So at any rate, they help work with young people around understanding what the field entails and all that. So I think we have a fairly lengthy segment that was taped with the founder, I believe.
Marc Blackmer.
Okay, so why don't we go away to that?
Great. Sounds good.
Welcome back to the Working Lunch. My name is Kwesi, and you are tuned in to another segment of Kwesi on Campus. Today we have our special guest, Marc Blackmer, who is here with Interrupt, and he will discuss cybersecurity today. Marc, how are you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing fine today. So how's your morning starting off?
With lots of coffee, so it's a typical morning.
Typical morning. Yeah, I have a cup of tea today. Usually I have coffee, but I have a cup of tea today. It's been an exciting morning. A typical day, do you have maybe a request log of IT work you do a day, or questions, or requests for security?
Yeah, particularly in my own house. I started in IT back in 1998. And then, several years ago, moved more to the vendor side. But I think once you've had a job in IT, it's always your job. So I always get calls from relatives and even around the house. So even though my official job is no longer in IT support, I think my day-to-day is very much still in IT support.
Yeah, so it's funny, growing up in I would say the millennial, the time gap, people always assume that I have the quick answer for most IT solutions or tech problems, and sometimes I'm just trying to figure out, the latest software update just like everybody else. So do you have anything else you would like to share with our viewers about your background or experience?
Yeah, I'm happy to. Try not to go too far into depth. I know we have only so much time. But, I grew up in Worcester. I actually went to music school. IT wasn't, it was something really that I fell into. When I lived in California, my best friend's dad used to build his own computers. And to me, I thought there were these mysterious black boxes. And then one day he just said, come on, we're going to go build you a computer. So we went and bought all the parts. I built my first computer, and I was surprised at how simple it was. So when I moved back to Worcester, God, it's been been 20 years now that I've been back here. I started building my own computers and eventually got into IT. So that's really how it all started. I was never, I did take classes. Clark University used to run these Microsoft certification courses, and so that was the first real training I had. Otherwise, I'd been pretty much self-taught, but it turned into a career. So here we are, nearly 20 years later.
Yeah, that's interesting because I remember in '98 I used to go to my grandparents' house, and my grandma used to have all these like modems and like chips laying around the house, and she was also into building her own computers from scratch, and that's how I learned a lot about computers, monitors, modems, CPUs, and everything else. But it's funny, you're like 7, 8 years old, you see these inside of computer guts just hanging around the house, and sometimes you're playing with them and you're like bending points on the motherboard, and then you get yelled at and you figure out like this is not just any old toy that you can just pick up and grab.
Well, you bring up a good point though about growing up around this stuff, and it's. I think every generation seems to think that young generation, so an older generation, like now that I'm a father and my daughter's 22 now, but it's what you grow up with and what you're around, and then it becomes natural. So because I used to have my parents and their friends were amazed at, I don't know, me on my original Atari or some of the things that I did on a computer when I was a kid, but it's just because you grew up with it. And I think having that early exposure is very important, and that's actually something, one reason I started Interrupt was to get cybersecurity introduce it to students so it starts becoming natural, so it doesn't become this scary, seemingly uber geeky thing, that it actually becomes manageable. So kind of like how you had that at your grandmother's house, when you're around that, and it's natural, and actually even sometimes to break things. I think there's a big value in breaking things,
Exactly.
Preferably under controlled circumstances. But I think you learn quite a bit that way. So I think that's pretty cool that's how that's some of your early experiences with at least computing.
Yeah, I saw, and also too, I used to like whether it was toys or old cell phones that I whether I broke on purpose or intentionally broke, I used to try to take them all apart and somehow try to connect the motherboards or electronic circuit units to try to make my own little moving creation. It didn't always go too well, but when looking back at it, I used to think maybe that could have been like a steer into like engineering at some point, because I had friends who ended up going to Northeastern who would just almost make like car door readers out of like old microwave parts and stuff that they just collected walking through the city of Boston, in which I used to go to that dorm room and think it was awesome that like they can make an old toaster and a few other computer parts, and create their own debit swiper.
Well, you hit right on it, and that's what I love. I got to admit, I grew up where I was always told, don't take things apart unless you can put them back together. So I didn't take things apart. Now, I love taking things apart, because you find out how it works. And I think, too, that idea of trying and failing, and I don't view failure as a negative. I view it as a learning step. As long as you learn from it, I think it's very, very valuable, because then that's all part of the process. If you do something and you look back and go, that didn't work, but then you think of a way to do it better. And so I really enjoy being around people like that. And again, with Interrupt, I'm around students. I mean, the age range is 14 to 22, and it's amazing what these kids come up with. I learn a lot more from them, I think, than they do from me. But I love being around that kind of energy of trying different things, different thoughts, approaching problems different ways. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, technology is definitely, it's always going to continue to grow and always have an open market for, new innovative things. And I was speaking with my father the other day, and I was telling him that, if a child today is growing up with an iPhone 7, like, that's crazy insane, because the potential and the power that mini computer has. And I was like, the things that phone is equipped with, I would have had to spend maybe a week or so on the computer downloading programs from multiple sites to just have maybe access to one of the apps that's on the iPhone 7. And like you said, growing up with the software, it enables these kids to have a more creative mindset and be adaptive to solutions and problems that occur like on a day-to-day basis. And like you said, you learn from these students every day. Are there any potential like internet threats, vulnerability hotspots, or like hackers like look for, like the kids can teach you to probably avoid backdoors from potential threats? Or do you teach them?
Well, I think it's a little of both.
Okay.
Most of the students who come and participate at our events, most of them are new to cybersecurity, so most of them are not aware of what the threats are. So we kind of work through some of that, and then we do get other students who are really pretty advanced, and then I think it's more of an exchange of ideas and concepts. I mean, so my day job, I work for Cisco Systems, a networking company, and my focus is cybersecurity for what's now being called the Internet of Things, as well as for critical infrastructure. So there's quite a bit, especially with the Internet of Things, quite a bit of room for vulnerabilities, or there's quite a bit out there, because what you have are these devices. Just recently, if you heard of the Mirai botnet, massive attacks from, basically a lot of them were from connected surveillance cameras.
Okay.
So there's no shortage of vulnerabilities out there. So what I do like to talk about is how to protect yourself, just some of the basics. And what we do at our events, rather than it's not school, it's not class. I look at it as an exchange of ideas. I kind of look at the participants who come as future colleagues, and so we take that approach of sharing knowledge to help them out, rather than thou shalt do it my way. We don't. That's not our approach. But we give them some knowledge, and then what we do is we have a virtual network that we've created with all different systems in it. We've created our own traffic lights, our own water pumps, and set a scenario that this utility that we've created has been attacked, and what they need to do is take the skills that we just introduced them to and basically hack their way back through the network to find the bad guy and basically save the world. And the reason for doing that is, I learn much better by doing things hands-on. I don't do well with theoretical. I need to see it applied, and that's what we try to do there. So that's really how we approach it. I mean, we may talk about a couple different types of vulnerabilities, but when you're put in a hands-on scenario and you see the mistakes people make, I think that sticks in the mind a lot more. So that's how we approach it.
Cool. That sounds awesome. So are there any browsing suggestions or security features that you would want to suggest to our viewers, maybe browsing privately and more secure?
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you for asking, because on our website, interrupt.com, just a couple of weeks ago, I put a blog post up there at the end of October.
Okay.
So I actually have a bunch of suggestions there. So you can check that out. And by the way, interrupt is spelled with a 1 instead of an I. But there's some comments there. But yeah, just some basics that for non-technical people, in order to browse more safely, to protect privacy, and same with email. So I think there's 5 tips that I gave there.
I definitely checked out the website, and I viewed a few of your blog posts, and so one of the, I would say, security questions you probably get asked a lot, and you highlighted in one of your blog posts is what are the risks associated with using public Wi-Fi? Would you like to share and update some of our viewers on the potential use of using some of the public Wi-Fi and hotspots throughout cities?
Sure. Yeah. I think I referred to public Wi-Fi as like a public hot tub, because basically what happens is you go into say a coffee shop, and the Wi-Fi is typically open. So that means there's no kind of security on there at all. And what a lot of people don't realize is the communications from their laptop to the wireless device and across the internet are completely in the clear for most people. So that it really doesn't take much. For me, I could quite easily go in. There are tools to do this, very easy to fire up, where I could go and sit there with my laptop pretending to be the Wi-Fi. And so people would connect to my laptop, and I can reroute their traffic back out to the internet. So nobody ever sees that. They don't see any difference, yet the whole time I could be sitting there gathering information. And so that number one is, for the most part, you're just exposed. So it's a matter of capturing information. It's a matter of, could I put some malware on your machine? There's a whole bunch of things there. So having the convenience of open Wi-Fi is great. I support it. But I think it's very, very important to then secure communications, there's a technology called VPN, stands for Virtual Private Network. That way, everything from your machine out to the internet is encrypted. So if I were to do that, which, by the way, I wouldn't do that because it's illegal, so I want to be clear on that. But that's one of the ways that you can be secure. Secure browsing helps as well, but that's only for the browser portion of it. So I definitely recommend VPN, but at the very least, using secure browsing, which that means if you go to a website and you see HTTPS, that's a secure connection. Without the S, it's all in plain text. So that's my initial thought on that. They're very convenient, but also rife with the potential for privacy, invasion of privacy.
And so, with the, major concern about consumers and the general public protecting their data today, is there any other, I would say security suggestions you would want to, extend to a person who's probably doesn't have the extreme IT background, or any, that's probably not computer savvy, because there are, there's people who probably in their mid 50s or 40s, and, some not older generations, but, some people who just didn't necessarily grow up with computers. Is there any way to, let's say you're using a computer and it looks like it's operating fine to you, is there any way to spot out flaws or like software glitches to tell that maybe your computer's being hacked or somebody's running a software?
I highly recommend antivirus software and anti-malware software. That, I think, is at the most basic thing that you need. And so, some will sit there and go, well, I think antivirus software has maybe a 50% success rate. Some people look at that as a negative, but that's 50% of things you don't have to worry about anymore. So I say don't skimp on getting that kind of protection at the outset. I think that's probably the most basic thing. And actually even more basic is when you have updates to your operating system, whether it's your phone or your laptop, whether it's other software, keep up to date, because what happens is with those patches and updates that come, those will include security patches. So if you don't run those updates, you may have vulnerabilities out there that are exploitable. And the simple thing to fix them is just running the update. So run updates and make sure you have antivirus and anti-malware on there, and don't skimp on those.
Yeah, I'm a little bit surprised, because you typically, MacBooks don't get viruses. And this past weekend I downloaded a third-party software, which potentially leak other softwares on my laptop that are scanning and saying like my computer's full with junk, and now I have to buy like another antivirus software or just restore my whole laptop. And I was actually trying to do all the proper updates and then download another software to back up my old iPhone, but it just didn't work out properly. And those are the things I'm worried about. Potentially opening up my computer to a third-party software that's probably international, or that's probably LLC through multiple other companies, and you just can't really find like the original owner or who really has access to your information now. So
you bring up a really good point. I'm glad you mentioned it. This idea of MacBooks not getting viruses, they're not impervious to that. The reason you don't see much happening to MacBooks is actually more because malware writers want the biggest bang for their buck, right? So Windows is by far the more popular operating system. So they're going to get more value. They write one bit of malware, one piece of malware, whatever you want to call it. And if it's for Windows, the effect is much greater than if they spend the time to do it for a MacBook. So it's not that Macs are impervious to vulnerabilities. What it is they just represent a much smaller part of the market, so therefore they may not be as popular to go after by the malware creators. So it's very important that if you run a MacBook,